Life is full of surprises. Career shifts, job loss, unexpected diagnosis, health issues, death, birth, marriage, divorce, winning the lottery. And for some reason, we find folks often think that as soon as they retire, those surprises just stop. Done. Smooth sailing from here on out. And that's just not the case. And so in this video, I'll unpack what I see are the 6 most common things people are surprised by in retirement. The results are pretty fascinating. I'll pull on some data from a recent expectations and realities study by Transamerica to help back up some of these reflections. By the way, if we haven't ever met, I'm Steve Willems. I'm a wealth advisor out here with the Willems Wealth Planning Group in BC. We started this channel to help you plan for your own retirement, helping you think about how to plan and arrange your investments, your income streams, and ideally have you pay less tax along the way. The idea of being surprised in early retirement comes down to a mismatch between your pre-retirement expectations and the realities faced by those same people when they actually enter retirement. In some cases, the expectations were properly set, but in many cases, there's a gap. Expectations were either too low and reality comes out ahead. That's good news. And in this list, there are some where that's actually the case. But where most are concerned is actually the other way around, where expectations were perhaps set a little bit too high. Reality had a way of whacking those perceptions down a few notches. Understandably, it's an uncomfortable process, and so helpful for us to be aware of those things before we enter that season of life. So let's dive in. The research I'll be referring to in this video comes from the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies down in the US. It was published back in September 2023, but despite the geography and the timing, I don't see a reason why this wouldn't be applicable for us up here in Canada either. Now, the first surprise is that you'll probably retire sooner than expected. The study found that 56% of retirees retired sooner than planned, while 37% retired when they planned and only 7% retired later than they had originally planned. Now, the reason behind this often isn't actually a personal choice. It's a forced choice. Perhaps a workforce downsize, a retirement package, maybe health issues, situations where we're not in complete control and unavoidably forced out early. Now, this has pretty significant implications, as you can imagine. If you plan to go to 65 and now we know that the majority actually retired sooner than planned and not by their own choice, that can leave a massive financial shortfall. Where will that extra income come from? If drawing down sooner, will the assets still last? What would you have done differently if you knew this now? And if you answer not sure to that last one, you're not alone. The same study asked the same question and found that 57% said that they didn't have a backup plan if they were forced into retirement sooner than expected. So just don't be in this camp. Expect, actually, that you'll be forced into this sooner than expected and have a plan for that income if it happens for you. Now, moving on to the second surprise, the data says that you'll actually worry less about money in retirement. And this is one of those upside surprises. This makes sense, actually. Almost every question about fears in retirement has to do with running out of money in retirement. And the fascinating part here is that the data actually shows a 13% gap between the 50-plus-year-old workers and the retirees. This fear of running out of money actually subsides once you make the transition into retirement. And people never really think it'll happen to them until it does. And we see this with our clients too. I can think of one client recently who worked in healthcare his whole life, typically pretty concerned about the do I have enough question. Never really believed the numbers, to be honest. Recently transitioned them into retirement last year, and they would self-attest being in this camp, feeling more at peace now even than when he was working and pulling a good income. Now, surprise number 3 has to do with how you spend your time in retirement. The surprise being, you'll travel less than you'll expect. Travel is a pretty common retirement goal for many. Again, makes sense. Experiences produce more happiness than stuff. Now, in the study, 60% of those pre-retirees surveyed, they shared that feeling. But shockingly, only 36% shared that they were actually doing the travel they imagined. A 24% gap. It's not necessarily financial reasons why this is the case, but this left column probably gives us some of the answer. In retirement, folks just enjoy spending more time with friends and family. It's the one area where actual time spent was higher than what they had expected in pre-retirement. These folks are fully wrapped up in their local lives, And while travel sounds exciting, perhaps in phase 1 of their 4 phases of retirement, they'll blitz it. But as they move through to phase 3 and 4 of retirement, more of their interests lie at home. Those 4 phases I referred to, by the way, are from a really popular TEDx talk by Dr. Riley Moynes. Up here, it's a great listen if you haven't ever had a chance to watch that video. Surprise number 4 has to do with when you take CPP. Now, this report looks at Social Security, the US-based pension program. Down there, the median age of taking Social Security showed to be 63 years old, albeit at about a 20 to 30% reduced benefit. The findings hold up here in Canada too, though. An informal survey from the Globe and Mail found that the most popular age to take CPP benefits was in fact 60, with 34% of respondents saying so. This coincided with Statistics Canada, which also found that nearly 40% of Canadians born between 1940 and 1950 began their CPP benefits at the age of 60. Now, word is getting out that it's often actually mathematically better to delay taking CPP until a later age, but despite this, folks up here in Canada and down in the US still seem to be taking it sooner rather than later. By the way, you really can't make this decision without running the numbers. While it's tempting to take it as soon as possible, there's so much more that goes into this than meets the eye. If you want a hand running the numbers for your own situation, we do those kinds of analyses all the time. I'll put a link in the description below for you to grab a time to help us make sure that you're making the best decision for your situation. Surprise number 5 comes a little bit out of left field. Talking about money will continue to be offside in retirement. It really shouldn't, though, and frankly, families and society at large would sure benefit from talking about this stuff just a little bit more. Of that group of pre-retiree workers, 27% confirmed that they never talk about money with family or close friends. And wildly, that increased to 44% in retirement. They get even more insular. So as you work through your 50s and into your 60s, you'll inevitably see why this strategy can be so costly. By that point, you'll likely have seen a friend go through a major medical issue without any contingency plans in place. Where are the passwords, username, net worth details? If you get hit by a bus, does someone else know? You've got to talk about this stuff, and you have to have a plan. Lastly, and in the same vein, comes surprise number 6, which is that most retirees have no clear legacy plans in place either. Do you have a will? This survey found that only 39% of pre-retirees and 51% of retirees had a will and testament drawn up. Now, to be clear, a will is the bare minimum of what we would call an estate plan or a legacy plan. The numbers sadly decline from there. Power of attorney, only 40% of retirees had it. An advanced care directive or a representation agreement, even less. A shocking 31% of retirees reported to having none of these things in place. You really don't want to leave a mess behind. We all know the story of the iconic musician Prince, who died in April 2016 without a will. The estate was worth hundreds of millions of dollars and has been subjected to prolonged legal battles by his siblings and half-siblings. Or how about Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, in August of 2018? Initially, it was believed that she passed without a will, but then they found a handwritten document that was found somewhere in her home. This is disputed by her kids, of course. Or Howard Hughes, the billionaire businessman and film director who died in 1976, also without a will, led to a frenzied scramble amongst his potential heirs and claimants to his massive fortune. If we can learn one thing, let's learn something from these terrible examples. At a minimum, get the low-hanging fruit covered. In BC, if you pass without a will, your stuff is deemed intestate, which means that the laws and the power of the BC legal system will kick in to divvy up your stuff, whether you like it or not. And to be honest, when we show someone how that distribution would go, if they choose to not get this done, it tends to have a pretty strong motivating effect. Let's just say you won't like how the BC government will distribute your stuff. So those are the top 6 surprises I took away from this expectations and reality in retirement study. You'll retire sooner than expected. You'll probably worry less about money in retirement. You're probably going to travel less than expected, but that'll be okay. You'll likely draw CPP early, but probably for the wrong reasons. You'll probably still shy away from talking about money, which you shouldn't, and you definitely don't want to be in the camp of having no estate plans. For those who are already retired, I'd be curious. Compare this research to your own experience and perhaps maybe write in the comments where you felt your experience matched those of these other retirees. And for those who are still working, hopefully this revealed some insight into some of the retirement surprises that you may not have otherwise expected. Hey, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.